Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Blake Armstrong from Silicon Valley Bank, and this is
Debbie Whistle from SwingSearch.
Thank you all for being with us this evening and joining us around the topic of transitioning from founder-led sales to hiring your first VP. We have some great panelists with us this evening, which we are excited for you to hear from. And I don't know if you want to say a few words about SwingSearch at the top of this first.
Sure. First, I want to really understand who's in the audience so this panel can tailor all their insights to who we have here. So can you just give me a little show of hand? How many of you are founders sitting here right now? All right. And how many of you have hired your first salesperson already? All right. How many of you are hoping to hire one in the next 6 months? All right. How many of you have made a hiring mistake you regret and you realize, oh, it's been so hard. Okay, awesome. I'm also going to ask all the investors in the room to raise your hand so that the founders can come find you later. Is that a timid hand raise? All right, there we go. They are being shy. I know. At least we have name tags. So thank you for that. I think what we have planned for tonight is going to go a long way in helping you walk out of here with a little more insight on how tough it is, but how learnable it is. So I come from SwingSearch. We are a recruiting firm of 35 people. We are best known in the startup market as hiring your first in function go-to-market leader. About 70% of our work is in sales or marketing. And we have a great collection of experts here to teach you about head of sales. About 40% of our work right now is in hiring your first sales leader. So we've coached many founders through this, and we'll share some more about that tonight.
Nothing starts until somebody sells something. So we hope that all of you walk away tonight with a few tips that you can actually put to use in the companies that you're building. I don't think I need to tell you about Silicon Valley Bank. We were in the news a couple of years ago. I don't know if you read about that. But as you can see, we are still standing. This beautiful building is still here. And our mission is still to improve the probability of our clients' success by hosting events like this, by interacting with founders and investors, providing connectivity to the ecosystem. So we love doing this stuff. I've been at SVB for almost 10 years, so I'm voting with my feet by still being here. And for those of you I don't know, please come say hi after the event. We paid a bunch of money for these food and drinks, so please feel free to help yourselves afterward. And with that, I think we'll turn it over to the panel.
Yeah, sounds great. Awesome. Well, so great to be here. I'm very excited. If all goes well, you guys will hear more from the panel than from me. So I'm putting a lot of expectations on them to step up and do most of the talking. But my name is Magna Sundstrom. I'm a senior partner at SwingSearch. Debbie already introduced Swing for us. And we have a great panel. So I was asked to moderate this because myself, my team, we've placed about 60 plus first heads of sales, first sellers by those founding AEs over the last 5 years at Swing. So pretty excited to be here and bring you some people to talk about. So first and foremost, to my right is Sam Price. So Sam is a talent partner at Audacious Ventures. She is a true, I know, totally. She's got a great fan club. Yeah. She's a true standout in the VC talent community, and she's really known for her sharp eye in recruiting top early stage talent. If you don't follow her on LinkedIn, you should. She drops gems all of the time, so make sure you do that. She is at Audacious. They are an investing firm. She was very, very early founder of that firm, seed to Series A focused investors. So also founders, it's good to know Audacious. Come introduce your companies to her. Second, we have Todd Lathrop, president of Polaris Growth Advisors. He's partnered closely with 75 plus startups to accelerate their revenue growth. Prior to this, he spent 15 years as a successful operator, has helped scale teams from 0 to 100 reps, and ARR from 100 to about 150 million. So lots of stage, lots of scale there, early to scale. And then last but not least, we have Conor Fee. He recently joined Fathom AI as their COO. Prior to this, he has been a CRO twice, a former COO and a founder. So knows everything about setting up the early sales foundation, can help scale companies. He's also been an advisor and served as a fractional CRO in helping early stage startup teams grow. So we have a great panel. I'm very excited. Yeah.
I'll give it, you get $20 now? Yeah.
And if all goes well today, as mentioned, we'll walk away with some good nuggets. So to get started, I wanted to give our panelists a quick round robin. So we'll do some fast thoughts here on a few questions that I ask. So Sam, one word that comes to mind when you hear first sales hire?
Exciting.
Awesome. How about Todd?
Train wreck.
Connor?
Potential.
Can I add one?
Yeah.
Hire two.
Yeah.
Plural, please.
Yes, hire two. Let's start with Connor this time. True or false? It's a bad sign when you're a founder who's hired a sales team and they're still involved in the strategic and enterprise deals.
God, no. No, absolutely not. It's a great sign.
It's a great sign?
Yeah.
Great sign.
Great sign. Awesome. Again, we'll go Sam. Myth or fact? Founder-led sales doesn't scale past 1 million ARR.
Myth.
Myth, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely myth.
Okay.
But like to put a point on that, like if you sell a product that's $20, if you sell lemonade and you're doing founder-led sales at $1 million, you might be doing it wrong. If you sell a $300,000 product and you're not doing founder-led sales at $1 million, you're definitely doing it wrong. So, you know.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then we'll start with Todd with this one. What's one signal you look for that tells your founder is ready to start building a sales org?
Documentation. If you can't explain to other people how you do what you do and make it work, you're not ready to have somebody else do it.
Awesome. Connor?
Say the question again.
What's one signal you look for that tells you a founder is ready to start building a sales org?
They have too many customer meetings on their calendar.
Sam?
I feel like there's no science to it, but some type of repeatable motion where they can describe exactly what they're doing to have someone else also do it, to take over for it.
Awesome.
Have you met a founder who is at this place? Like this mythical place is amazing. Like.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into, we talked about kind of founders leading sales and when is that point to hire? Because that's, I think, a big part of the question in this room. So, and when do they start to step out of sales? In my experience, a lot of founders come from engineering product backgrounds. They really want to be out of sales as soon as possible, right? What we heard in the beginning is that we want founders in those deals. So Connor, what do you tell founders, like when should they expect to step out of sales?
Well, I love this question because like the engineering founder who had to become a sales guy laughed immediately when he heard the question, which I think is like clearly the right answer. Yeah. When does a founder get out of sales? I hate to break it to you, but the answer is like never. Yeah. The moment you think that you're done being in sales, you should hand in your founder. Like, okay, so I take it back. The real question is like, when does the CEO founder get to stop being in sales? And the answer is absolutely never. If you're the CTO founder, if you're the design founder and you're not in sales every day, like no hard feelings, no problem. It's great, you chose a different line of work. But if you want a CEO title and you want to carry the responsibility of the company, you do not get to skip out on sales. It is a non-negotiable. You will always be involved in some form or fashion, in my opinion. Yeah. But I mean, I think founders often don't make great salespeople. They make great sales engineers. They're super technical. They know the market better than anyone else. They know the product better than anyone else. So sometimes, we talk about founder-led sales, and we talk about like the founder is like, oh, here's how I do it. And I'm like, that's great. I love that you wrote that down, but it's based on 20 years of market knowledge and 5 years of product knowledge that the person we're about to bring in may or may not have. Mm-hmm. So I think there's just a lot of thought that goes into like, what is your role in sales as the organization grows and you grow? And I think you got to look to your strengths and see where you can be really valuable there.
Awesome. Yeah. Todd, I'd be curious your thoughts on how that evolves as you've been at companies that have scaled, past those early revenues into those 50, 100 million, 150 million.
The CEO is still super involved. I couldn't agree more that CEO has to be probably your best sales engineer, probably your best CSM. You don't have to be the one that's doing cold calls and running, cold email cadences and stuff like that. Like, sure, get out of that. But you've got to be getting face-to-face with customers, with prospects. I kind of think forever, right? Look at huge companies, look at public companies. That's what the executive team is doing, right? They're on the road meeting with critical customers and prospects. So yeah, it does change a little bit, but you're not getting out of that. I think there's a real trap that I see founders fall into a lot, which is that they believe because they don't come from a sales background, they can't be a sales person or have a sales mind, and that's not true at all. It's a science, it's knowable, it's teachable, it's learnable. And the bargain I see founders make where they really get burned is they say, I'm going to hire an executive who's going to come in as a VP of sales, CRO, whatever title I'm going to give them, and they're going to own it. I'm going to delegate to them. This is a real professional, right? And you're hiring them, thinking of them as someone who has founder level responsibility, and they don't.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, they're out of there in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and you missed the whole funding cycle.
Yeah. I've seen founders even do it earlier than that. Like they hire 2 salespeople and they think, oh, okay, they're going to run revenue. And when we're advising our founders, we're seed stage. So a lot of this is very early, like sub 2 million, sub 1 million, like sometimes pre-revenue. And we always say, like, you are the head of sales. 100% you are the head of sales for a very long time. So even if you hire a head of sales, you are still responsible for the number.
That's my qualifier for clients that I work with. That's what I discuss with people before I take on work, with them, is I try to get a real sense for, do you need help getting good at this because you need to, or are you trying to figure out the fastest way, off the hot seat? Because if that's the case, I can't help you, and neither can your first 2 sales hires, or
A lot of people want off the hot seat.
Who here is like a founder that wants off the hot seat in sales? Because like you're not, maybe there's nobody, so like it's fine. But like you're not gonna believe us until you fucked it up. Like I'm sorry, you're not. Like it's impossible to truly understand exactly how you think, I just hired someone, I can't wait to give them this problem, and then lo and behold, 6 months later, it's like, that didn't work at all, right? Like you can't take your eye off the ball.
You can't expect to give someone 1% and have them figure out and hold all the risk,
Preach.
right?
Yeah.
Like, it just logically doesn't make sense. That you're not
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no.
It's also, you would evaluate them differently if you were considering them as a co-founder. So I often get founders to sort of think about this, in the inverse. What if I, as a commercially minded person with no technical background, said, I know everything about how this company's going to work commercially. I know exactly what the product's going to do. I'm just going to hire a tech guy to, build it. Give me someone with 10 years of experience at Microsoft. Oh, that's a great background.
Check.
DevOps, sure. He'll build my AI app.
Yeah.
Like, no chance that's going to work, right? And you'd all know it's crazy. And then I say, plus my budget is 140K.
It's like, you get a half a point.
Yeah, there's no way that person's going to be my technical co-founder and figure it out, right? Like it has to be a different equation or a different set of expectations, right?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I want to roll back to something that you said there, Sam, and that was hiring 2 and then talking about the concept of these 2 founding AEs versus hiring a head of sales. So Audacious sitting in the seed stage, what are you recommending to your portcos? What are you advising?
Well, Todd, I think, said there is a science. I have to disagree a little bit. I think there's a
You're in the
little
minority
bit of,
up here.
Science and art that goes into like getting product market fit, figuring out what you need. Do you need 2 SDRs? Do you need 2 AEs? Do you need a head of sales? And I think if it was a science, it would be easy and we'd all know how to do it. It would just be a formula there. And I think the formula is always different. And that's what makes it hard. And so you kind of have to figure out what the founder needs, what their personality is, what the business is, what they're going after, and then assess from there. So we usually try to say, hire 2 SDRs or hire 2 AEs. If you're an enterprise company, you have AEs that you can go after who know how to hunt. If you're a mid-market company, traditionally, you guys can keep me honest, a lot of inbound comes to mid-market. Marketing can flow through to mid-market reps. So they don't have as much of like hunting experience. So then maybe an SDR is better, or maybe you bring in an enterprise. So you kind of have to like figure out what the right configuration is. And a lot of people don't believe enterprise SDRs work. So you kind of have to work with the founder and iterate with them on what's right. Great.
I would like to defend Todd's honor because this is important to me. You said sales is a science and knowable, and you said effectively building a sales organization is more art than science. I actually agree with that.
Equally art and science.
Fair. Especially in the early days, it's all problem solving. Like it's all like trying things, experimenting, seeing what works, and trying something new.
Yeah.
The art of being on the phone and asking questions is knowable and teachable and trainable to a certain extent, but building it is more art there. I would agree with that.
But
Is that okay? Did I defend it acceptably?
No, I do agree with that. And there's also, there are lots of problems that we don't need to solve for the first time. There are lots of ways that we know don't work.
Yeah.
So I think we can get, with some repeatable principles and structure, we can get into sort of a smaller area where we can say, well, now we need to experiment with this. Is it someone that's a little better at this or a little better at that? A little more of this experience, a little less of that, whatever. But most of the mistakes I see getting made in early sales team hires and builds are like obvious on paper. They're clear. When I first talk to a founder, I look at all the people on LinkedIn that have come and gone usually, before they call me, and I'm like, well, that person didn't work out because of this, and that person obviously didn't work out because of that, and they're knowable, spottable sort of issues.
Let's get into that. What's an example of something where you say obvious on paper? And so, like company product motion, is it seniority of the candidates? Like, what are the things that you're looking at there?
There are two big ones that I see. One is just they don't have experience with a pattern. So they've been working at a big company, you're a small company. They've been selling something transactional, you're selling something complex. So there are lots of iterations of, they just haven't really been doing a job that's that similar to what you want them to do. That's probably number one. And number two has to do with experience, and that they usually have too much experience. It's a zero-sum game, right? You have as much money and equity or whatever as you have to offer to this person. So if you have 300K, you could get a dog shit CRO, right? Or you could get an amazing mid-market sales rep, right? And so you have to sort of think about, who am I getting if I'm offering a certain pay package and I'm getting someone with way too much experience? I know we all love our companies, but why does this person want that job? So I'm always looking for someone who's on the upswing, who's going to be reaching for that responsibility, who's going to bust their ass to achieve, not who's failed 3 times in a row and is willing to try it again at your company.
Yeah.
That's a loser.
I think one of the biggest mistakes I see tactically is a founder brings in and builds out an SDR team, but they have no idea what the SDR team is going to do. Is email going to convert? Is phone going to convert? Is LinkedIn ads converting? Like, what is driving the pipeline? And then they hire SDRs that have only been on the phone and not email, or only email and haven't been on the phone. And then they feel for 6 months, they've been trying to build this thing, and now they're completely burnt out on SDRs don't work for our business.
Yep.
When in reality, it was the wrong fit and we just didn't know what we needed in that function yet. And I think it's harder to peel back like the founder from feeling SDRs don't work for my business, because they've seen it not work for 6 months.
Yeah.
And then they're built out on trying to have it work.
Can I riff on that for a
Yeah.
second? So I think someone said that, like someone way smarter than me said this, I'm not gonna take credit for it, but like, we think a lot about product market fit, right? With this like milestone place, we can debate how much of a range it is, but like there's this period which we are searching for, like, does this product meet this market, right? There's another thing that happens like, 12 to 18, 24 months after that, and that's the search for go-to-market fit. And it is this trial and error. SDRs on email, SDRs on phone, fucking AEs this way. Like, It is a iterative development process in the exact same way that product market fit is an iterative development process. You listen to customers, you take the feedback, you try different things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But oftentimes founders think deeply and care a lot about the search for product market fit, and then don't think or care about the search for go-to-market fit. And I think that it is like equally as hard a problem to solve, potentially, if not harder. And yet it's just like not the thing that people want to engage in and feel like they're like, I got product market fit, check it, screw it, raise money, throw salespeople at it, right? Like,
Actually, I'm curious,
100%.
do you guys believe SDRs work at Seed?
depends entirely on the infrastructure. I'll give you a great example. I worked with a client last year. They sell to construction. You know what the best thing about construction is? They pick up the friggin' phone. All of them, project managers, this is what they do all day. They all day long, they work with this guy and then they work with this guy, and so this guy's calling and da-da-da. The SDRs are phenomenally effective.
But what's the profile of the SDR at Seed?
It didn't really matter, to be honest with you, because they pick up the phone and because project managers are in the business of like doing stuff. They're like, sure, I'll take a 30-minute meeting on that. It depends a lot on the situation, I guess, is what I'm
Because
trying to say.
I'm still trying to I honestly still don't know if I believe SDRs work at Seed. The reason being is when you're a larger company and you have career development and you have onboarding, you can go hire a college grad and you can train them for 6 months and go do what they need to do. When you're a seed stage company, you can't hire the new grad because they have no training. Like it's hard to teach someone how to be on the phone.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so go after a 2 or 3 year SDR, which you don't really want to do because
person's already
it's
failing.
an 18-month role. They're already failing. Why do you want someone who's been in the same role for 3 years?
Why do we have SDRs in the first place? Why do SDRs exist?
To grow into sellers.
They're cheap.
Because they
Because
want
they're cheap.
the career growth.
No, SDRs exist because they're cheap. The reason we have a 2-stage sales process is because SDRs are less expensive than AEs. Think about that for a second. That's fundamentally why that process exists. Otherwise, we would just have AEs do it, but a better use of time is like split of resources.
Yeah.
I largely agree with you that a seed stage company, just screw it, just pay for the AE to do it. Like make the AE do it. Yes, it's more expensive, it's more inefficient, but at that stage, it's not about efficiency, it's about like solving the problems as fast as you can, basically.
Yeah.
So generally, I would wildly agree with you.
Yeah. It's hard.
I think it is a matter of what the profile is, though.
Yeah.
So on one hand, if you're hiring college grads, they're 100% going to fail in that role unless there's a bunch of infrastructure around them in terms of training and enablement and all that.
Yeah.
If you hire the person past 18 months to 2 years, they are already failing at that job and should be an AE
Should
somewhere.
have been promoted.
Right? So that's sort of your parameters for where you could hunt. But within that, I've got a seed stage client right now who's got 2 SDRs that are in that profile. They've got 12 to 18 months somewhere else. They both came. One came and was doing well, recruited his buddy from the same company, right? They know each other. They're using Orem it's like a dialing software. They're pumping out phone calls.
Yeah.
They're sitting in an office in a real room in New York.
Yeah.
And they're booking 3 to 4 meetings a day between the 2 of them every single day.
Yeah.
And they have an audience. They have a persona that generally picks up the phone. They have a big TAM, so they can pump through calls. If you think you're going to get an SVP of technology or something like that on the phone at a big company with an SDR hammering the phone or sending emails,
that's not going to work.
you're not.
Yeah.
So it depends.
Yeah.
It depends.
What do you think about hiring like a hot shot 6-month, 12-month SDR and giving them an AE title at Seed, but an SDR role?
But same job,
But like an inflated title to get them over.
Inflated title, I think fine. I think the real mistake is if you expect that person to actually do an AE job without anybody there telling them how to do it or give them guidance. Like salespeople are good at sort of matching a pattern that they've been told about.
Yeah.
Right? And so if they haven't seen it, they're in deep trouble, regardless of what the role is, whether it's leadership or AE or SDR or anything else.
Yeah.
I think the honest answer is if you hire an SDR and give them an AE title, they're going to think they're an AE and do an AE job.
Yeah.
Like that's the risk that I think you would run into.
Yeah.
Now, you might give them the AE job and be like, you have to source all your own pipeline.
Yeah.
Right? That's like a slightly different story. So you see that sometimes with junior AEs where they have to just source all their own pipeline and they have a much lower target number.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Awesome.
I knew Pete was going to have stuff to say.
Yeah, this freaking homeless
He
guy
should
walked in
be
off
up
the
here,
street.
you guys. Yeah.
I think Sam's observation is like you want to grab somebody who's like maybe
On that trajectory, yeah.
You can go shopping in places like LinkedIn. So like these large organizations that have really good onboarding programs, but then they're not going to matriculate their SDRs until like 2 years.
Yeah.
Especially in the current economy, people aren't like matriculating their AEs fast enough. You can say pop over here to an SDR at a cool seed stage or Series A stage company. You're going to get to AE way faster than at LinkedIn.
That's the dream.
The 2 we got in the case I was just describing both came from PitchBook.
Yeah.
And there was nowhere to go, right? They were sort of like, there are layers of not the AE role that I want above me, and it's too slow.
You can also find this same model for SDRs, not necessarily at big companies, but at middle companies that like have SDRs, have AEs, haven't figured out how to career path them, and they keep throwing off these SDRs because they're like, there's no seat for me, and the people that went before me actually weren't successful at all because there's no enablement and training there. That's another place where you can find people that are in this sort of style.
100%.
Awesome. I want to keep us moving forward because I know we've got lots of areas to touch on this. And so we've talked a lot about who we're hiring, who we're thinking about these AE hires, when to hire them, seed stage, et cetera. Is there, and we mentioned the myth, right? Like it's a myth that founders can't go past 1 million revenue. We've talked a lot about this sort of, the up and comer, finding this right person. And we've talked a little bit about that go-to-market fit. Is there a time and place when you would say to a founder, like this generally is when you should be thinking about hiring your sales? Like what does go-to-market fit look like where you're like, say, yes, now start to hire that sales team?
The word I said documentation. I don't know. I don't like that word very much, but really I think what I'm talking about is the specificity that you are able to communicate around what you need somebody to do. So if you say, it's hard, I need a sales guy, you're not ready.
You're not ready.
If you say, I've got too many meetings and what I really need is someone that could do these demos because I have plenty of inbounds coming in and they need to be a product expert and know this and that, great. Or if you can say, they're gonna have to book their own meetings, but I can tell them specifically, a good fit company looks like this. It's not just they're a retailer, it's they have the following sort of attributes. They look just like this. They have this kind of person. Here's what they care about. You have to be able to articulate that clearly and specifically if you want a chance of somebody else to come in off the street and be able to replicate that. If you can't do that, I think you need a little more time doing founder-led sales.
Okay.
This is a little bit of a silly answer, but I think that when founders come to us and they want only one of anything and they won't want to hire that second one, I feel, okay, you're not ready.
Oh.
Like if you don't feel that the market is pulling it, if you don't feel that there's a repeatable, like why not hire two and like have them benchmark against each other, have them have that competitive spirit with each other, know when one is doing well and if it's a product market issue or if it's a messaging issue or if it's a person issue. And when people are founders are a little bit more open on like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. It makes me feel like, okay, like they're feeling good about things.
Yeah. I think when it comes, like, there's no perfect answer. I think we all,
Yeah.
these questions are sort of tricky to answer, right? I was just talking with a woman whose name I completely forgot here a second ago. We were talking about this. There's a style of hiring where you have to sit down in advance and you have to write down this thing called a scorecard. And on the scorecard, you need to decide 3 outcomes.
Yeah.
I'm going to go hire.
MOC.
What's that?
The MOC.
Yeah. I just think of it as the WHO scorecard.
WHO scorecard,
But
yeah.
you have to write down 3 to max 5 outcomes of the hire, right? And so, if the outcome is like revenue, you're not ready to hire, right? If the outcome is like, I need this many meetings booked on average per month for the next 12 months. I need someone to figure out how to sell into this specific vertical. We've done it thus far, but we've struggled to make it repeatable. Like the more specific that you can be about exactly how you're going to measure that person in 6 to 12 months, the more specificity you have on that spectrum, the more you're ready to make that hire. Not just in this position, but in any position. Fast forward into technology or a product or whatever you want. The more you can be clear about what you're going by, what you're shopping for, right? I love this analogy because you are going to the store with a shopping list. The more your list says organic, farm-raised, eggs, 12-pack versus eggs, the more successful I think you'll find yourself. Yeah.
Awesome. So there's a topic that's come up a lot in sort of my little road show over the last 2 weeks, and I'm curious how this is resonating in sales hiring. So there's been a very big return to hustle culture that we've seen in the market. We're hearing 996, we're hearing a lot of like 8 to 9s, all of this, return back to the office, back in culture, 12-hour days. Is that affecting the way you guys are advising or thinking about hiring out those sales teams in any way in that return to hustle culture?
I mean, as an investor, I love it. But as a human, how
Hey, let's get more. Yay!
We all just work 24/7, please. Yeah.
I think it goes back to, are you hiring somebody that wants to bust their ass and reach for the role? If you're hiring somebody that's already done it a bunch of times and you're not paying them that much, that person rightly expects a pretty cushy situation. Mm-hmm. If you're hiring someone that's going to make more than they've made before, have an opportunity for advancement they've never seen before, like when I think of those 2 kids in the office in New York that I'm talking about, no one's saying what the time is they have to get in or out, but they are both like fighting to beat each other to the office in the morning and get to 100 dials first, and because they desperately want to beat the other one and have the first shot at being an AE there. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's always been the right answer, is to have the carrot out there instead of the stick.
And so the question was, is it affecting hiring?
Or
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you seeing people lean in or lean out from it? Or is it just dependent based off the candidate?
I'm seeing more scrutiny on younger folks without families, without kids, who want to grind.
When you say more scrutiny, what do you mean?
Like more personal questions being asked about who someone is and what their situation is.
Interesting.
Truthfully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm seeing more clients consider or require that people need to be in the office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to decouple in office
Yeah.
from
Hustle
the
culture.
hustle
Yeah,
culture.
yeah,
Yeah.
Because so I had a sales team of about 45 when COVID hit. And we were onboarding new reps pretty regularly. And we were in the office here in right down in the Tenderloin, total shit area. It was bad then, it's worse now. Sadly, we could like graph the rate at which our young new reps would be successful. And as soon as we went to the remote, like I watched the line just flat, okay? And so my theory on my like 2 cents, and I guess no one asked me, but I'm giving it anyway, is the younger you are in your career and the older you are in your career, the more you should be in the office. Especially in sales, you have so much to learn from sitting next to the person next to you. You don't have to be there 996. Like that's not actually required. They learn a ton by like just listening to the guy next to you, listening to the gal next to you and hearing what's being said. So I see more and more of that actually, more than the hustle culture. And then maybe it's just because I'm at a stage in my career when people tell me that they want me to work 996, my response is like, okay. To Todd's point, good luck, find somebody who's really excited about that.
Yeah.
I think you've got to make a fair trade-off, right? Like if it's like, cool, you're gonna work your brains out, great. Then like, is there more equity? Is there more cash? Like what's the trade-off here? Like, why am I getting this opportunity kind of thing?
What we like to say at Audacious is more like hiring for the obsession. It's like the person that's going to be obsessed. Like maybe they're not in the office on Saturday, but they're thinking like, do I have my pipeline set up for Monday? Like, what do I need to do on Sunday night? Like, yeah, go have fun, do your thing. But like, is someone just obsessed with the craft to where it's not necessarily a job and they're just thinking about it all the time?
Yeah. Yeah. And it definitely, I think, this idea of shifting back to this culture, back in office, these up and comers that have a little bit to prove, there's, and we've talked a lot about that persona here. What are the cons of hiring that high potential that hasn't been there, done that as you're going through those early stages?
Emily here just gave me one of the best answers to that while we were networking. She said that eventually you are going to need an adult in the room. You have a very angry customer, you have something that you need to work through, and you're going to need the sophistication, and it's going to happen. And if you don't have it, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So I just stole that from her. I'm sure there's more.
I think that I think the risk is more around being able to retain these people. And I don't think that's a problem necessarily. It's just a thing you need to know that if you hire a person that's, on a trajectory like that, you got to be ready for it. And if you have to be a little bit honest with yourself about how high growth is my company.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I was running sales at Checker, I watched a guy go from like second sales job. He had maybe 18 months of experience in sales, and we hired him into sales. He was one of our first sort of commercial employees, and he was our top salesperson, then became like a director of enterprise sales, then did this big solutions job, and he kept going up and up and up and doing bigger and bigger deals. But the company was a rocket ship, and it was okay. Like we could support that. And then he was the CEO. He founded a company after that and raised a bunch of money and is running a big company. So it's like you need to know either you're on the same trajectory or I've got to think about the fact that this person's going to outgrow me. And usually it's the inverse, right? Usually you're outgrowing early employees that can't scale at the same rate as the company, but the inverse happens.
What do? Hire the 80%er?
No, I hire the person. I just am real with the fact
they're
that
be
like
divas.
I have to. No, I don't even say divas. I'd say I need to keep challenging this person and giving them room to grow, or be realistic about the fact that they're going to leave.
Yeah.
And I need to be open with them and let that happen and backfill and not take it personally when they're like, I'm going to go be a whatever
Yeah.
and get paid twice as much. Like,
Yeah.
that's fair.
It wasn't, the question originally wasn't the 80% or the high potential. The question was like, do you hire for experience or the high potential, right? And the question was like, what's the risk of hiring the high potential? I would say the one risk that I like comes to mind is like the people that have been there, seen it, done it. The best of them don't say, this is how you should do it. They say, this is the 5 ways I fucked it up. This is the 5 ways I did it wrong, and here's what I generally leared from that, and here's how I want you to think about it. The up-and-comers haven't screwed it up as much. Like they haven't been in all the mistakes. I see a lot of folks do this. This is one issue I see a lot with like up-and-comer type folks. And look, I love that model, don't get me wrong, but up-and-comers worked at a company and then they cargo cult like crazy. I love this phrase. Someone has to explain it to me. You're gonna have to look it up later. But cargo culting is basically like when you see a thing done, and you just do it that way because that's what you knew how to do, not because you fundamentally understand how this is built. This is a reference to World War II where these people would fly planes into small islands and then they built bamboo huts to land planes. No planes landed with bamboo huts because bamboo huts don't land planes. But the point is, sometimes those people have seen it, they know how to model it, but they don't understand it enough to be able to modify it and adjust it to what you need. So it's a risk. It's not, I still lean towards that model, but it's for acknowledgement of the risk.
Awesome. I recently have had several, do you have a question? Sorry.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm probably the oldest guy in the room. I've been around a long time, been in sales for a long time. And I haven't heard field sales mentioned once in this conversation. There are 3 types of sales. There's remote salespeople on the phone, there are people in the office on the phone, then there are field salespeople. The industry, the wine industry requires relationship sales. I gotta be in your face. I gotta be sitting across from you to make the sale.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that in this idea of transitioning, hiring people?
Yeah. Todd or Conor, have you guys?
I've
been a field sales guy.
Yeah.
Carried that friggin' bag.
I wore out lots of pairs of shoes. I think it's just like anything else that you have to, as a founder, when you're the one that's responsible at this stage for being the sales leader and building a sales team, you have to understand what type of sales org you are building and whether it's going to be a bunch of young kids sitting in a room making phone calls, or if really you just need 3 senior people, East, Central, and West, and they're going to be doing $500,000 deals. And it's something I see a lot with founders is they maybe haven't been exposed to that many different models, so they're not even clear on what all those options are, and they end up getting sort of pigeonholed into the wrong one. So that's a lot of the work I do with founders is to talk about all the different permutations of what this could look like. And it's not just field sales versus inside. It's also like, I like to sort of map out, in a document, in an Excel document, what are the metrics? What is this organization going to look like 2 years from now? Like if we hit fast forward and everything's going the way we hope, what does it look like? Do we need to buy like 40 more desks and a bunch of phones, or, we need to know what it looks like. And I remember that really, I can still picture what that was like when I first started at Checker, because we had this big sales target and I looked at the data and I said, okay, if nothing changes, we have 15 people in the company, we need to hire 40 salespeople.
Yeah.
We don't have 40 desks. We don't have room in the office. Like, I don't think that's what we want to do. And everyone's like, well, of course not. It's like, okay, well, what's going to change? Are we going to double contract sizes? Are we going to double our conversion rates somehow? Like, what's going to happen? We need to be able to look at those numbers and picture what this thing looks like when it's working. Back to the specificity, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to be able to picture that, I think.
I was going to say probably the reason you hear us talking about field sales a lot is like very rarely would your first sales hire be a field salesperson.
Yeah.
If they were, you'd probably still hire them in the geo that you're in because you want that proximity. But like if you're a founder who's on a plane 5 days a week to close sales, yeah, you're gonna need to hire a field sales team. It's a little bit what the customer demands. This goes back to my comment earlier about go-to-market fit is this like searching process. It is iterative, it is trial and error, and it is trying to figure out what works.
Awesome. We've talked a lot about who do you hire, when do you hire, all of these things, but how do you hire, I think is a great one. And so we now have the persona, we know who we're going to hire. Recruiting early sales hires is challenging. So any key nuggets, Todd, in your opinion, what does a great hiring process look like?
What does a great hiring process look like? I'll tell you the way I do it. The way I start is early in the hiring process, like early in the stages of the sequence of events. I focus a lot on whether the person meets the fundamental requirements. And the reason I do it that way is because I used to do it in reverse. I used to start with, fit and culture and all these other things that made me fall in love with a candidate. And then I realized they actually haven't done the thing I need them to do, but maybe they could. I really like them. They're so smart. They're so great, right? And it's totally the wrong way. So I try to front load the process with like the hard, boring, like not interesting parts of it. And you have to be kind of quick about it because it's not fun. But I look really closely at whether, like how similar the pattern that they've been looking at is to what I need them to do. And I don't mean have they been in the same industry. What I really mean is like, I need you to do 5 deals a month. Are you used to doing 5 deals a month? I need you to do all, new business, new logos. Are you used to that or farming? I try to stay really, really focused on that early, and only then later in the process get more into fit and sort of a culture fit and things like that. That's one nugget that matters to me a lot.
Hiring sales at Seed is insanely hard. And it's hard because you have no brand and you have to be a great storyteller. And so I always say speed, conviction, and momentum is what's going to close candidates. Like you have the speed, you have the conviction in what you're building, and if you have great storytelling skills. So like a lot of it is how the founder shows up. And if they can sell, great comp packages are important. And I think just having intentionality around what you're looking for in the early days is really important.
Awesome. Sam, you talk, I've seen some of your clips where you talk about references and how you leverage those in a closing process. And so I'd love for you to share that nugget with the team. It's a very good one.
One thing that just came to mind on how do you know if someone's good is back channels. So don't forget to do those. So I believe that references are a huge closing tactic. And when you go in to do references, you should be pretty much sold on wanting the candidate. If you think about it, the candidate has given you their mentors, their bosses, their peers, the closest people in their life. And you have this opportunity to show up and explain why this person should join your company and why they should join you. And if you're not using that 30 minutes or that 15 minutes to really sell that reference on why the candidate should join, you're not using it. Like it's a wasted opportunity. Because what happens the second that reference hangs up with you? They call the candidate and they like, hey, I just talked to so-and-so, like this is an amazing opportunity for you. Or the candidate calls the reference and they say, what did you think of Todd? And if they say, oh, he asked really strange questions, it doesn't sound like he's ready to hire you, that's going to turn the candidate off. And so, of course, go in with like the things that you need to suss out, but don't forget that it's always a sell call and that it's a great opportunity to get the closest people in these people's lives rallied around your company and what you're doing. And I also think that like if you build rapport at the end of it, you can say like, hey, I really want Todd. Like, where's his head at? Do you think he's gonna join? Like, what else is left? Like, what do I need to do here? And then you get to work with those people to like bring them on.
Awesome.
That's really good.
Yeah, it's great insight. Conor, I've heard from a lot of founders, well, sellers are really good at selling themselves. How do I know they're actually good? So what do you say to founders? How do you assess talent?
Most sellers are terrible at selling. So I don't know that the premise holds, to be perfectly frank. I'm going to answer this by sort of going back a question for a hot second. The question was like, how do you run the process? Like, how many people hire here and have a very clear, defined, written process, who interviews, what questions they asked, et cetera? That should scare the hell out of the room, right? Like we all go into interviews and we're like, they do it. Our questions are kind of like off the cuff, basically, right? I'm a big believer in like when you find the 80% good enough answer, grab it, run with it, and don't like look back kind of thing. 5 years ago, I read this book called Who, the WHO. It's a hiring method. It is like unbelievably prescriptive about how to do these things. Don't think, buy a copy of the book, read it, just follow the hiring process and everything will get better and easier. Frankly, seriously, references are a big part of this process, et cetera. So coming back to the question, which is like sellers are selling, part of it is like you got to ask everybody the same questions. If every seller you talk to, you have a different set of questions and the interview is kind of off the cuff, like how do you compare A to B, right? So the thing that I've had the most success with sellers is like generally figuring out what it is that you want from them, going back to our like, what are the 3 things I'm going to buy, right? And you'll hear this a lot. You hear this from companies that have figured this out. I'm going to date myself with this one, but there's a Boston company called PTC or Parametric Technologies that figured this out. They spun out a bunch of salespeople who went into a bunch of other companies who spun this stuff out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, they own like the 33 best CROs in the world.
Yeah, but what these folks figured out was there were like 5 traits that mattered, and then the rest of it was sort of forgettable, basically. And you can look all this up, but like the ones that always matter to me, like the one thing that I think people don't understand, coachability. Like the person needs to take feedback. They don't need to take it. They need to crave the shit out of it. They need to live, breathe, and die by the collection of that feedback, because as salespeople, like every day is different. We have to get better. We have to get smarter. We have to get more capable. If they can sell themselves, great. Are they coachable? Again, you don't get to give up the job of being head of sales, which means you are going to have to coach them after that call is over to be like, I don't love the way you handled that question. Let's talk about how to deal with it. You want somebody that's like, yeah, let's go. What can I do better, right? Versus somebody that's like, I don't know what I'm doing. You need to get out of here, right? So coachability for me, there's other things, but those are some of the things I would encourage people to think about.
I always remember it as ICE. ICCE, intelligence, coachability, character, and then experience.
Yeah.
Is the acronym.
We have just a few minutes left, and I want to make sure we touch base on you've hired your first sales leader to come on. How do you make sure you're setting them up for success? What are you coaching to your portcos? What are you telling your teams?
Is it sales leader or is it just sales?
Either way.
I think that the most important thing that you can do is the onboarding, but I feel like at Seed, onboarding feels like this big daunting thing. To me, it's more like, what is the energy that you're showing up with and what is the expectation that you're setting with your sales team? Not on day 90, but literally on that first week. Like, are you setting up a Monday meeting where everybody does their PG and everybody sits around the room and says what deals are happening? And are you holding that team accountable? And are you like showing up? So I think like onboarding, setting expectations, and just like getting in it with them. And like showing that it's like a team sport. Is really important.
I would give 2 different answers depending on if you're talking about a salesperson or a sales leader. If it's a salesperson, what I recommend is that you are very, very specific about what you want them doing and that you measure that really, really quickly. Like if I want you doing outbound prospecting, go build a list of companies you think are a good fit based on what I've told you and show me this afternoon. And then I get to see, I said 20, did you do 20 or did you do 16? And then, keep it really, really tight and iterative so you can make corrections, figure out where you went wrong and help get them back on track. If you wait 30 or 60 or 90 days, they're not savable and it might be your fault. You might not have been very clear, right? So that's what I think of for a rep. For a leader, I think you have to tell them what you don't care about. And what I mean by that is by the time someone becomes a sales leader, they've been indoctrinated through wherever they've been to care about specific things, and those things might not matter to you. So for example, it might have been beaten into them for a decade that forecast accuracy matters above anything else. And then they show up to an early stage company and all they can do is forecast accuracy. And you're like, I don't care, like it's 2 people on the board, I need growth, right? And I think that was actually something that we really got right when I started at Checker is our CEO sat me down and said, I don't care about this, I don't care about this, I don't care about this. And I was sort of like, is this a trick? Is this a trap? Like, I don't believe you. He's like, I honestly don't. And here's why I don't care about it. But here's what I really do care about. These things have to be right. This matters more than anything. And I still found it really hard to set aside my experience and all that learning and say, I'm going to let that go. I'm going to do this thing instead.
Yeah. I think this is true for regardless of the position. Spend way more time with them than you think you should. As someone who started a job 3.5 weeks ago, I started a company, I had a 9 a.m. meeting with the CEO, and then I had an open calendar for the rest of the day. You know what I know how to do on day one? Fuck all, seriously, like nothing, right? When I've had success myself or I've seen success, it's like there's a 30-minute meeting at the end of every single day. How did today go? What's working? What didn't work? It's the same thing you're doing for the reps, but even with the executives, right? Like it's like get on calls with them. How did that go? What do you think? Like you can do, you can set aside, call it 5 hours a week to onboard that person for the first 2 weeks. It might be 30 minutes twice a day. The amount that you will skyrocket their success at that company, I don't, it's a big number, but yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're just about at time. We'll take some questions, but leaving the audience with one last piece of advice, especially the founders in the room that are transitioning right now to hiring their first sales leader, like one sentence, what's the one thing you want them to take away from this?
Whatever sales leader you hire, make sure you want to answer their phone call 20 times a day.
Good one.
In the beginning.
I would say, on a note of optimism, you can do this. I don't think most people are really born salespeople. Those who we think of as being in the sales archetype, that's usually not the people who are actually great sellers. So you can do it. You can learn it. There are tons of great books. There are tons of mentors out there. There are lots of people that you can find and connect with that can help you, and you can absolutely do it if you put your mind to it.
I am an engineer turned salesperson, like legit. I had an engineering degree. I wrote code in college, and now I do this. My lasting thought would be, you're gonna make a wrong hire. Maybe now, maybe later, whatever. And you won't believe me until it's too late. Move way faster than you think you should. Way faster. If you're not sure, you are sure. If you're even like, oh, maybe, they gotta go, period, full stop.
Yeah.
Especially at executive levels, especially as you grow the company, whether it's sales or marketing or product or engineering or whatever, the longer they stay in seat, the more you're gonna regret it. I literally had lunch yesterday with a guy who was to work for me, and he's like, I'm 6 months too late. He's like, you told me this. And I was like, you're never gonna know it until you've lived through it. You're gonna have to live through it once. Remember this, because at some point in your life, you're gonna be like, shit, that asshole on stage was right.
But
you gotta have to live through it a little
what
bit.
does it mean for the business to be 6 months too late?
Well, especially at an executive level, it means they've brought in the wrong people and they've instituted the wrong policies and procedures. And now you need another 3 months to find the right person, and now you're 9 months behind where you wanted to be.
It will take you a year to recover sometimes.
Yeah.
I would say it's a funding cycle.
Yeah.
You were supposed to grow a
totally
certain
a
amount,
funding
and
cycle.
you didn't.
But it's okay to be wrong. Like, it's okay to be wrong. Like,
Just not on the sales hire. Don't fuck that one up.
no, I mean, like, hand up. Like, if you get it wrong, just be like, got it wrong. Moving on, right? Like, investors, everyone else, it's like our job to be like, yeah, that's gonna happen sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, do it. It's trust the process. Do everything you can to do it right. But if you get it wrong, just screw it and move on.
What I can't think of is a time where I did it too fast. I can't think of one in my career where I went, I was a little too quick on that. Never happens.
One of my favorite questions to ask sales leaders when I'm vetting them is, when do you know that you need to let go of someone? And it's interesting because a lot of sales are like, oh, I give like 3 months, 4 months, or you want to hear like that your sales leader is ready very quickly to get rid of people that aren't right.
Awesome. Well, on that note, let's open it up for a Q&A. Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about compensation, the base, variable, and also equity?
Like how?
Yeah.
Like maybe some ranges for the salesperson or sales leader, both.
Enterprise, mid-market, high velocity.
For my
VP,
specific
CRO.
situation, would be mid-market, upper mid-market, and maybe.
What's the ACV? Like, what are you defining as mid-market?
So right now, 6 figures.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like maybe like 180.
Sales cycle is like 6 months.
Sometimes less, like 3 or sometimes weeks.
3 month sales cycle, 180K ACV. Fuck yeah. What is the company? Are you hiring? Like, what are we doing here?
So I'm actually not the founder. I'm first sales hire. And so I'm just kind of
All right. Still fire. Let's go.
And the interesting thing is I was actually a customer, internal champion for for the company I work for now. And I realized the opportunity. I jumped over to the other side of the table. So that's like an interesting, my company's called Daydream, and I'm head of GTM right now.
Congrats.
Yes.
It's hard because
Great question, really hard to answer.
It's hard because it's really, really wide range. What I would say is you can get your hands relatively easily on like a report that shows you all the different ranges for lots of different levels. It's kind of hard to say like, what's the number? But you should be able to get your hands on a report like that.
What's your commission percentage?
I guess like I'm hiring. I actually had an interview today on an AE that I want to hire.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm asking is like, I want to know that I'm compensating him correctly and bring it to my founder.
And what's the commission?
We haven't said it yet.
I'll maybe give you like a framework to start from, and it's not going to be accurate, but think about it this way. Assume 10% commission and assume that you're going to do...
He means 10% on the revenue.
On the revenue,
10%
yeah.
of the revenue should go to the non-base portion of the compensation.
Yep.
What is the quota going to be?
So yeah, we're figuring all that out.
Okay, wait. This is actually good. So this is great. Figuring all that out.
If you can get to, like, what is it, like 800K?
For the quota?
Yeah.
I think most people say like 1 million quota makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you know the 4-to-1 ratio?
Yeah.
Yeah. I forget how to
Yeah,
describe it.
but it's like, here's the problem. We're gonna give you a bunch of advice and it's all bullshit, right? Because what you actually need is to hire somebody who's like willing to sit in that like unpredictability. The fact that you're guessing on quota, the fact that you're guessing on all those things, like you need to hire someone that's like, are you excited to work at a company where we're guessing on quota? Yes,
we
and if
also
they're
have-
not, they're not gonna be a great first sales hire.
And we also have like no sales, engineering, marketing, and all that stuff to back them up.
I mean,
so I feel like
Okay, I'll help you. So try for like 250, 300 OTE on a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
Probably 0.2% of the business. I don't know, unless you want to incentivize more, and raise your commission up a little bit more to like 13%, because it's okay for you to be on a bit of a different ratio. It sounds like this is the first or second hire.
Yeah, first
maybe
hire.
even higher, and make sure you have some type of accelerator after 100% so that you can try to get the W-2 as high as you possibly can.
Yeah. And then last question is, would you also basically use uncapped commission?
Yes.
Absolutely,
Okay.
always.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great series of questions, by the way.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I'm about to hire my very first sales resource. The company has 20 entities in beta, no revenue. It's a free, no charge beta. And I know they won't make any commission. So I'm trying to think of metrics that they could earn as an incentive to get going. The plan looks very enticing. Literally millions of dollars of commission, tens of millions of dollars of stock as the company hits. I have deep product experts. I've reviewed 600 resumes, interviewed 35 people, and I have 3 stars that are going through second, third round interviews.
What is the behavior you want?
I want them to use their network and go out and close everybody they know.
You want logos.
I want logos.
You want logos. Incentivize them on logos.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's literally incentivize them on logos. That's the answer.
Yes, and what I would never do is best effort. That's not going to fly, right? So figure out what it is. In this case, it's logos for you. For somebody else, it might be customers into pilot or something other than a revenue number if you're that early. But it can't be best effort. If it is,
What do you mean best effort?
Yeah, I've never heard that.
you seem like you did a good job. I'll subjectively give you 100% of your bonus this quarter.
Or you almost hit your target, so we'll just give it to you.
Yeah, that to me breeds like the wrong culture.
Yeah.
And to your point, who's the salesperson that you really want should not be okay with that. Like that should be at odds with their sort of constitution. So I think you want the person who is, to your point, Connor, like, I'm super stoked on this because I can see in a year how I'm going to sell millions of dollars of this stuff. And for right now, logos, that seems like a reasonable number. Okay, I can see why that's a fair proxy. I'll do it.
Yeah.
But as soon as you start getting into like best effort kind of bonus structure, or you go down from the 50-50 split, you get a bunch of people that are actually more like farmers or account managers. You want someone that's like, I want a big commission upside and a real tangible, like specific way I'm going to earn it.
We want a super hunter, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because they're thinking, the best salespeople usually ask like, so what happens if I double the quota, right? Not what happens if I miss.
What can I W2, not OTE?
What about taking your stock and giving half of the stock for time and the other half for milestones? You guys like that?
Oh, like instead of a month-based vesting, you do it based on.
Well, do some for effort,
Yeah.
but a bunch for success. is what I like to do.
If you can get them to take it, I love that, right? Like it's like pay me to do the freaking job, and if I kick ass at it, I should get paid more.
Yeah. We call that waterfall equity.
Yeah.
Where like it's milestone based, and each thing unlocks the next tranche. But I think to Todd's point, it has to be hit. It's not on best effort.
As soon as you start dabbling in that best effort
It gets
land,
very messy.
yeah, and it
Because then when they don't get it, they're flight risk.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I'm going to head far from 180 ACV down to about 3 to 12,000 ACV for my salespeople. I'm offering them 15%.
And they're field based?
Yeah. Local. They're very local.
Okay.
They're not out, traveling the country.
Yeah.
But, I'm talking about trying to get to 100 clients by the end of the year, right? So it could be very nice, but I'm doing a 15% for the 3-month trial, which is a paid trial, and then 10% for the balance of the year, and then cutting it at that point in time. How do you feel about the cut at the end of the first year?
Good. What I want when I think of a compensation structure, a variable compensation structure for a hunter is, this is a little bit crass, but I want them to like go hunt, get paid, spend the money, and do it again.
Yeah.
Like I don't want any annuities or renewals, or it just like all takes away from how much they need to go hunt.
Yeah.
So it's good, and that's the whole SaaS model, right? Like you could pay them forever, but you don't.
You're paying them. Sorry, just to understand that you're paying them 15% of the monthly recurring revenue, and then eventually you're paying.
3-month trial, 15% for the first 3 months, and then for the balance of the year.
Yeah.
10%.
See, but I would push back. Like I would disagree with Todd because I'd be like, give me the money up front. Like so, humans are Pavlovian dogs, right? Like the longer if I ring the bell and then I feed you, you understand that bell equals food.
Yeah.
The longer I wait, the more I delay the payment on it, the more your brain like doesn't understand to do the right things, basically. And so if it's like every time you sign a new logo, big fat paycheck, go spend the shit out of it, right? If it's like I've got this base of clients that I'm building and I'm now making money right now that was based on work I did 6 months ago, if you can afford the cash transaction that goes along with it, I want to pay them for the logo, knowing certain amount of retention rates and whatever. And like, look, if all their sales fall, we'll have a clawback clause or whatever. But like, I'd rather pay them now and then make them immediately like, shit amount of money again, I need to go close more kind of thing.
100%. That's the ideal, is that it all happens immediately.
Yeah.
The worst thing is it gets extended out even further.
The immediate is what's in their control, right?
Right.
Like them staying on for a full year is now in products control or CS. Like their job was to go get the logo. And so, yeah.
This is an important point though, but like if you pay them to get the logos, pay them to get the logos. If the logos they get suck, it's not their fault. Then you didn't put the right structure in place around what kind of logos you want.
Yeah.
There's a perpetual exercise that has to happen where support or CS or account management or whatever function you want to call post-sales keeps feeding back to the business the rest of the things that are good customers and not so good customers. And that keeps getting fed into the sales machine in terms of what are the qualifications of a customer. Do not expect sales to be like, I could close 2 deals this month and she looks great, but he looks sketchy. So screw it, I'll just close 1. Doesn't work like that. If you don't want them to close the 1, tell them they can't close the 1. Yeah.
Questions?
If not, I'm going to start making up questions.
That was awesome. First of all, thank you all for being here.
There's one behind you.
There's one behind you. Yeah.
Just an observation. The hardest hitting salespeople I hired were fresh college graduates from Central Valley's universities who'd worked their way through college. Every one of them that I hired that worked through college, knew how to show up for work, didn't take bullshit for an answer, and just rocked.
What was the ICCE? Wasn't one of them like grit, basically?
No.
Oh. Okay.
Intelligence, coachability, character, experience.
You could argue character falls in there, but like
Character
you
could
see,
be grit.
like a lot of
Yeah.
Like a lot of sales is being told no.
Yeah.
Like you have to get pretty good at being okay with being told no. Like get up off the mat, let's do it again, right? And so like yes, those things will correlate with people who are comfortable with that. Cutco knives.
I think a lot
Did
of
anybody
it-
like
100%.
Cutco knives? Like yo, there were people who went door to door selling knives. Do you know how many times a day they get told no? Those people make great salespeople because they show up and they're like,
John McMahon hired a bunch of them.
People
would
are like,
sell
wait,
to
I
him
get to sit here in this air-conditioned office and use the phone? Like, it's all about relative to what the last crappy job you had was, sort of thing.
So I have a strategic question and a tactical question. So it's 2025, it's the age of AI. Strategically, how are you thinking about the pros and cons of integrating some kind of AI product into your tech sales solution stack? And then tactically, have you found any solutions that have actually helped accelerate your sales on your teams?
Strategically, I'd say cautiously. I just looked at a big sales plan that a CEO sent me the other day. I was like, gosh, this is 25 pages long. And there's sections for everything, and there's all this. And the more I read into it, I first was like, I think as the VP of sales he just fired maybe did this, and he totally got it wrong. And then the more I looked at it, I went, this is ChatGPT.
Oh.
And I asked him, and he's like, yeah, ChatGPT. And I'm like, okay. The dangerous thing is this looks really, really similar to something that makes sense. And it's actually mostly wrong. We're not quite applicable. And that's what I'm seeing so far in the real world in terms of applicability is people taking a little bit of a shortcut and using AI a little bit in the wrong way in sales and being a couple degrees off. I don't think it needs to stay that way. I don't think that's inherent to AI, but I think cautiously is how I would think about that strategically. And I haven't found anything tactically that I really, really like.
I have a very biased opinion on that, but I'll let Sam.
Well, I won't answer it in terms of sales organizations. I'll answer it in terms of recruiting organizations or teams. And I would say that if you're not trying to figure out how to integrate AI into your workflow, you will be left behind. And experiment with it and see what works. And these technologies every day are getting so much better. So if you've tried a product 6 months ago, chances are it's in a completely different life stage of where it was today. So we utilize maybe like 20% of our workflow on the recruiting side at Audacious is AI today. Hopefully we can get that closer to 50.
Any specific products you use that you like?
We use Perplexity for list building. We use Tezi and Juicebox for sourcing. We use MetaView for interview note taking. We use Jam as our ATS. And one of my recruiters has built out an entire funnel where he records his interviews. It gets put into something that spits out his template and how he sends his candidates. And it sends it in a Slack message to him. So he's probably closer to like 50.
Man, I've seen a lot of versions of this not work.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a little bit burned maybe. We've tried multiple versions of like the AI SDR, the AE, whatever.
Yeah.
I've seen versions that work. I had a client, User Gems, who I think they were building an AI SDR thing that's like not bad, to be honest. But that's what I would call it. Is like they were a client, and I would still say at best it was not bad. They're evolving. They're getting better. There's no question there. I also I'm torn with this mindset of like you've got to find a way to integrate AI into it, because I feel like some of my teams spend a lot of time trying to find ways to integrate AI into it. And I'm like, you would be better served doing your job and then asking your friends on the weekend, what are you guys using? Finding the ones that work and then just stealing label. Let's just be the second mover on this thing a little bit, if I'm being totally honest. So I agree with you, but like in spirit more than like the amount of time that goes into it.
The Spotify CEO came out and said that if anyone on his team wants headcount, they have to prove AI cannot do it before it's approved in his company.
That's cool for the Spotify CEO.
I would almost say the opposite, which is like before you're trying to use any technology, whether it's AI or anything else, like do you know how to do it? And is there a reason you can't do it fast enough, or there's a way that you could be sped up and that would help you? Then go find a solution that does it. But I see people like do an end around on that, and they're like, can something do my job for me? It's like, careful. Like, you know, if you find it, somebody else will, and you're out of a job. Like, maybe get better at it.
The one thing I'll say, so the tactical question, look, I think I'm obligated to do this now. It's like my third week on the job. We're going to come, we call Fathom. We make this thing that listens into your meetings and take notes, yada, yada. I have found, so in 3 weeks on the job, I had not used one of these tools actually prior to joining this company. It also records all my internal meetings. And at first I thought that was kind of weird, but I've actually found myself going back and being like, wait, I can't remember quite what she said at that moment. And then going back and listening to it and be like, shit, I didn't understand at all what she said. And now that I've like re-listened to the section with 5 more days of knowledge at this company, like a lot of it makes more sense to me. The place that I'm seeing AI work, at least in sales, is the call recorders that then will integrate with the CRM and push like useful insight data into the CRM, because humans updating the CRM was like always a bad, neat product thing.
There's good cases for AI.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You never have
I'm
to
not,
update
I'm
your
not
CRM
against it.
ever again.
No,
God.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Cool. Any last minute questions? No? Well, on that note, thank you so much to our panelists. Hopefully we all learned a little bit today. I know I did. So I know there's wine, there's snacks, I think, somewhere. And so, please come up and ask them questions. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.